It's raining in Nairobi, so naturally, traffic has forgotten the purpose of a road. Umbrellas, there are so many, they're just fighting for space. And somewhere at a matatu stage, a conductor has just seen 3 droplets of water and they just announced a new fare. Like how? Now, picture that stage years ago. Matatus are revving. Conductors, they're shouting the same destination, as if volume will make the vehicles arrive faster. Music is entering your body through organs you didn't know could hear. People are squeezing in, because getting home has become an emergency. And then, a purple bus appears. Very clean, nobody is hanging at the door. The crew is in uniform. You're given a ticket. You sit down. The bus is quiet. And the fare is very predictable. It's not like the usual Nairobi system, where the price can just change because of weather. And people are willing to wait for it. Like you just stand there and you hear other conductors calling, but you insist you want to wait. At its peak, Double M had more than 100 buses. It employed more than 250 people. It built bus bodies. It trained drivers. It ran a garage. It controlled fuel and became one of the most recognizable transport brands in Nairobi. And then, the purple buses, they started becoming fewer. The founder died. New circles, they arrived with newer vehicles and they copied the discipline Double M had made famous. The old fleet aged, the routes thinned, workers went to court. A hotel dream, it became a property dispute. Eventually, the land holding the offices, garage and petrol station, it was advertised for auction. But Double M, it didn't disappear with one dramatic final trip. The buses showing up saying, "Hii ndio mwisho, the last bus ever." The company entered a long, slow twilight. The name remained, the stage remained, a few buses remained. So, how did a husband and wife hustle become the bus Nairobians trusted? Why did a company that seemed to understand commuters so well struggle to renew itself? And how do you decline after teaching the entire market how to compete with you? To answer that, we have to go back to a Nairobi where the matatu was becoming king, formal bus companies were weakening, and basic respect was still an innovation. Before Double M, Nairobi already had buses. In fact, Kenya Bus Service had been operating in the city since 1934. There were scheduled routes, designated stops, and a formal operator with enough presence to shape how the city moved. Then, Nairobi grew faster than the formal system could carry it. New estates spread outward. More people needed to reach factories, offices, markets, and the city center. Kenya Bus Service, it could not absorb all that demand, and private matatu rushed into the gap. They had existed in a legal grey area for years, but in 1973, President Jomo Kenyatta formally tolerated them as public transport. That decision, it changed Nairobi permanently. The matatu was flexible, it could enter estates formal buses ignored, it could respond quickly to a route with passengers, it created jobs and gave ordinary vehicle owners a way into transport, and it was fast, entrepreneurial, and very Kenyan. See a gap, enter the gap, then argue about the rules later. But by the 1980s, the same industry, it was developing another reputation. Overloading, speeding, loud music, insults, sexual harassment, and crews having an attitude and misbehaving. Research on matatu culture records how the admired small entrepreneur was increasingly being associated with thuggery and disorder. The government tried to rebuild formal transport through Nyayo Bus Service in 1986. Now that year is very important because it's the same year that Double M moved into passenger service. Nyayo Bus came with state backing and the confidence of a government project. Double M came with one family, one growing operation, and the daily pressure of surviving Nairobi roads. One looked powerful on paper, the other was learning the passenger one trip at a time. Over the years, Nyayo Bus disappeared. Kenya Bus Service, it weakened. Matatus multiplied. Nairobi was moving, yes, but the experience of moving, it was becoming more chaotic. That created a very specific business opportunity. The city did not need another vehicle shouting for passengers. It needed an operator that could combine the flexibility of a matatu with the order of a proper bus company. Something private enough to move quickly, but disciplined enough to feel safe. That would eventually make purple one of the most trusted colors on the road. But first, the business had to begin. And even its birthday, it refuses to behave itself. Now when I was looking at the date that Double M started, I found 3 dates: 1979, 1980, and 1986. The company's legacy account places its first vehicle in 1979. The Kenya Yearbook, it says the founders began in 1980 with one bus. Then other profiles, they just describe the earlier business as matatu bodybuilding with passenger transport beginning in 1986. The founders were John Mugo Mwangi and Mary Wangare Mwangi. They were husband and wife, and the name Double M is generally explained through their initials. Mary and Mwangi, 2 M's. The marriage was literally painted into the brand. Now, the founders were building. Their opportunity was Eastlands, where huge numbers of commuters traveled toward the CBD and industrial areas every morning, then poured back home in the evening. I'm talking about Buruburu, Donholm, Umoja, Komarok, Kariobangi South, Jogoo Road, Outer Ring, and others. These ones were very busy. It wasn't about glamorous, being the most glamorous route. By late 2003, Double M introduced a stricter operating model. Passengers would sit, crews would wear uniforms, tickets would be issued, the cabin would remain quiet, behavior would be controlled. Today, those rules sound obvious. At the time, they were very expensive. People are used to moving with someone's handbag on your forehead, and crews without uniforms, no tickets, meaning the payments would always end up into an argument. Nikiingia ulisema 10, sasa imefika mbao aje. And then there was loud music at that time, you would just pray that your ears reached home with you. And the hawkers, they were just a normal thing. You enter a bus and then you're being forced to buy socks, herbs, salvation, everything. So Double M, they just changed the standards. And many buses, they used 4 seats across, meaning you had so much space. This is not usual. Many buses usually have 5 seats. And the Nairobi commuters, they responded very, very well. They waited for the bus. And that loyalty, it came from predictability. A passenger knew what experience they were entering. In public transport, where strangers share space, bodies, bags, and risk, predictability can feel like safety. Competitors could copy the color, they could buy similar seats, they could even wear uniform for 1 week when officials were checking. What was difficult was maintaining the culture trip after trip. The company became strongly associated with Buruburu, Donholm, Umoja, Komarok, Kariobangi South, Jogoo Road, and Outer Ring. Then later, Kenyatta National Hospital, Upper Hill, Hurlingham, Yaya, Valley Arcade, and Kawangware. These places, they have huge passenger volumes, especially during the morning and evening peaks. The company expanded beyond ordinary commuter trips into corporate and organized transport. Churches, schools, weddings, funerals, clubs, and staff groups could hire buses. The reason Double M looked simple from the passenger seat is because complexity had been pushed behind the curtain. Underneath one purple brand sat a garage, a bodybuilding operation, driver training, fuel infrastructure, employees with different legal employers, and a partnership structure complicated enough to later require judges to explain it. From the outside, one bus company. Inside the paperwork, where? The name passengers knew was Double M. The legal and operating structure underneath it was more complicated. Express Connections Limited was incorporated on 10th June 2003. Court records also describe a general partnership called Double M Commuter Train. In a 2016 Court of Appeal judgment, witnesses said 4 individuals and 4 companies pooled buses under that common operating identity. The named individuals included John Mwangi Mugo, Michael Kanyago, Frederick Washira Wagura, and Sylvester Githinji. Express Connections was one of the corporate partners. Now this shows how Double M could appear as one organized fleet while different people and companies owned or supplied buses underneath. The public saw one queue, one uniform, and one name. The partnership, it saw multiple assets, employers, and liabilities moving through a shared system. It was a clever way to build scale. A family company did not necessarily have to purchase every single vehicle by itself. Other owners could bring in buses into the pool and benefit from the Double M's brand, passengers, dispatch, and standards. It was also a legal headache waiting patiently for its appointment. The operation itself was extensive. Double M's related business, 2M Autotech. It was presented as a bus and coach bodybuilding company. The wider group advertised panel beating, upholstery, and work on light and heavy commercial vehicles. It also promoted a driving school focused on defensive and advanced driving, including assessment of drivers before employment. Then, there was the depot property along the Jogoo and Kangundo Road. When it was later advertised for auction, the description revealed how much of the company lived there. office blocks, a generator, a cafeteria, a garage or godown, ablution facilities, a sentry point, and a petrol station. That property was the physical spine of the business. Vertical integration, it gave M control. Build or repair bodies internally, train drivers, manage fuel, maintain a common look, keep standards close to the owners. But control is expensive. A workshop needs equipment, a depot ties up land, a salaried workforce must be paid whether traffic has been kind or wicked. A large company-owned fleet carries the full pain of depreciation. The same infrastructure that makes a growing company strong can make a shrinking company heavy. Anyway, for now, the machine was expanding. And by around 2010, M had reached the part of the story people remember most fondly. At its height, M operated over 100 buses. The workforce was above 250 people. The scale was visible everywhere. The buses were so big, so definitely they felt different from the 14-seater matatus, and they looked very beautiful, the purple color on the road. And then the feature that we all love, 4 seats across. Imagine the amount of space. Oh my God, I know you people understand this. So everything is good, life is good, business is booming. Customers are getting into the buses, everyone is happy. Yet, the same peak contained the seeds of future difficulty. First, the company carried heavy fixed costs. Buses, land, workshops, staff and maintenance, they all required money before the first passenger paid fare that day. Second, the brand was closely tied to its founders. Mary and John, they were the leadership culture. That makes decisions fast while both founders are present. It becomes dangerous if the company has not built a strong second line of management and a clear succession plan. Third, M's advantage was visible. Competitors could study it. The company had proven that Nairobi passengers would reward order. Once that lesson became obvious, other operators did not need to invent the same idea from zero. They only needed to copy the best parts, raise more capital, and bring newer buses. M had taught Nairobi what disciplined public transport could look like. Soon, discipline would stop being its private territory. And while competition was learning, the government was changing the rules of the entire industry. In the early 2000s, Kenya began forcing more order into the public service vehicle industry. The Mishuki reforms took effect in February 2004. They demanded visible identification, uniforms, capacity limits, safety measures, and more formal management. Many matatu operators resisted. There was a strike, and Kenyans walked in numbers. I'm talking about huge numbers. Do you guys remember this? These numbers were so huge that they reminded the country exactly how dependent it had become on private transport. M had already introduced several of those practices: seated service, uniformed crews, tickets, identifiable management. In that sense, the law was moving toward a model the company had already tested. That should have protected M. For a while, it probably did. But regulation also reorganized the market around companies and circles. A circle could grow differently from a family-owned fleet. Instead of one company borrowing to buy every bus, many individual owners could join, each bringing a vehicle and capital. M's central control produced consistency. The circle model could produce speed. Every new member could arrive with a newer bus. More buses meant higher frequency. Higher frequency meant passengers did not have to wait as long. And in public transport, frequency can defeat affection. Yeah, you may love the purple bus with all your heart, but at 8:30 p.m. in the cold, you're just there shivering. That love is going to be tested by the third clean bus from a competitor. Yeah, when they start coming 1, 2, 3, and you're just there waiting for the purple one, you'll find yourself going with the rest. Operators such as Supermetro and other structured brands, they later offered uniforms, queues, recognizable branding, and newer vehicles. The visible things that once made M exceptional became part of the category. The company had trained the market to demand discipline. The market responded by producing competitors who combined discipline with distributed capital, faster fleet growth, new technology, and stronger frequency. M attempted some modernization. In 2020, it participated in a cashless fare pilot. But there was not a second major innovation strong enough to restore the company's earlier lead. Now, competition was only one front. Access to Nairobi's CBD was another. In 2008 and 2009, city authorities, they tried to push many Eastland public service vehicles toward Muthurwa and restrict access to the city center. Operators argued that the terminus was incomplete, too small, and commercially damaging. Double M was the only bus company allowed into the CBD. Express Connections and other operators, they also challenged the restrictions as discriminatory. By 2014, Express Connections withdrew its part of the case because it had been allowed to operate in the CBD again. Now, this does not prove bribery or corruption, it just shows a company securing access. The deal was proper. By 2010, Double M still looked strong. More than 100 buses, hundreds of workers, a beloved brand. But the market around it was moving faster, the fleet would need continuous renewal, and the company remained heavily dependent on the people who had built its culture. Then in December 2011, one of those people was gone. John Mugomwangi died in December 2011 while receiving treatment at Nairobi Hospital. For the family, this was grief. For the company, it was also the sudden loss of a co-founder carrying technical knowledge, authority, relationships, and institutional memory. Mary Mwangi took full control. Now, I know the public usually says that when John died, that is when Double M started to fall and Mary was not a good leader and all those things. But that's just emotionally convenient. Mary inherited buses, workers, partners, debts, property, a changing regulatory environment, aggressive competitors, and a brand built around the direct involvement of two founders. She was expected to preserve the old standard while leading in a market that had learned from it. So let's not ask why Mary could not imitate her husband. Let's look at whether the company had converted the founder's personal discipline into systems that could survive either founder. Was there a strong board, independent directors, a clear second line of operations leadership, a written succession plan, defined family roles, a capital strategy for fleet renewal? The answers to these questions, they're not on public records. I didn't find them. And that absence matters. Founder-led companies often look extremely organized because the founder is everywhere. Everyone knows what is acceptable because the owner can arrive at the stage, the garage, or the office and decide. The real test comes when the founder is no longer there and the company must discover whether the rules belong to the institution or to the person. Mary also entered politics. She contested the Embakasi East parliamentary seat in 2013, challenged the result in court, and ran again in 2017. Another allegation followed this case. Oh, you are draining Double M's money into politics, you are accelerating the decline, and so many other stories. But Mary said that she entered politics because the transport sector lacked representation. The company kept operating after 2011. Purple buses still moved, passengers still boarded, but consistency began to loosen. And in transport, decline is first measured by ordinary people standing at a stage asking the most dangerous question a bus company can hear. Where is the bus? Now, the decline of Double M was not announced through a press conference. It appeared in the queue. A bus that used to come every few minutes began taking longer. A familiar route saw fewer purple vehicles. Passengers, they started using alternatives. The bus that arrived, it looked older. A breakdown became less surprising. Nairobi County later said that the Kariobangi South Terminus, previously used by Double M, it had fallen out of use after the company's vehicles numbers reduced. Passengers in the mid-2010s, they were mentioning stalled buses, weak headlights, poorer maintenance, and crews who no longer matched the old standard. You see those comments? That's how the public experiences institutional decline. A company can remain registered and famous while customers watch it disappear one delayed trip at a time. The economics then became vicious. Fewer buses mean longer waits. Longer waits send passengers to competitors. Fewer passengers weaken cash flow. Weaker cash flow delays repairs and replacements. Delayed repairs create even fewer buses. A bus in the yard is not earning. It's consuming space, value, and patience. Double M moved from more than 100 buses at peak to a much smaller road presence. Workers felt the strain too. A company model that had supported more than 250 jobs becomes expensive when the fleet shrinks. Labor cases reveal disputes over sign-in systems, overtime, leave, absconding, and unfair termination. Some workers spent years in court trying to recover dues. Safety also complicates the nostalgia. In 2012, the Standard reported that 2 people died after a speeding Double M bus heading toward Donholm lost control and landed in a ditch on Jogoo Road. In April 2020, author and journalist Ken Walibora, he died after being struck on Ladis Road by a bus reported as Double M. The police said the driver fled and was later arrested. Then, in November 2017, a Double M bus hired to carry worshippers, it was burnt in Mathare during post-election violence. That was an attack on the company. As the operation weakened, routes did not vanish together. They faded at different speeds. A bus came every 10 minutes, then every 20. The queue began borrowing other operators. Eventually, the stage name survived longer than the service frequency. And behind this gradual contraction, another risk was growing away from the road. Double M had entered property development. The idea was supposed to create something lasting. Instead, it threatened the very land that kept the buses alive. The crisis becomes visible through property. Express Connections became involved in a development arrangement with Easy Properties Limited. Mary Mwangi later said the plan was to build a hotel in honor of her late husband. The dream itself, it's understandable. Build something permanent, turn grief into a landmark, create another source of income beyond buses. The business math was less sentimental. Media interviews reported borrowing of about 168 million shillings and a dispute that grew beyond 216 million shillings. Then, in September 2021, auctioneers advertised a 1.767-acre property along the Jogoo and Kangundo Road. That property contained the offices, generator, cafeteria, garage or go-down, ablution block, sentry point, and petrol station associated with the operation. This was no ordinary piece of land. It was where the company organized itself. You know, where the buses were maintained, where workers reported, where fuel and repairs met the timetable. The popular headline became that Double M buses were facing the auctioneer's hammer, but the known advertisement centered on the land and facilities. Mary said the buses themselves, they were not the collateral in that notice. Now, imagine this. The buses, they need engines, tires, bodywork, and replacements. The property project, it needs money. The lender needs repayment. Workers need salaries. Competitors, they are arriving with newer vehicles. The passenger at the stage does not care about arbitration. They only want the bus to come. That's how financial trouble becomes visible to the public, through an empty road. By 2021, Double M had reached the most dramatic point in its long decline. Yet even then, it didn't receive a formal death certificate. The company remained active in court. Purple buses, they continued appearing on Nairobi roads. You know, the name was still attached to stages and routes. The business had become smaller, harder to measure, and easier to remember than to count. As of August 2026, Double M survives in reduced form. Recent profiles still identify Mary Mwangi at the center of the business. The buses, they continue operating in parts of Nairobi's network. But the scale, it has majorly reduced from what we had at the peak. That's it, guys. This is just Katalina, and thank you so much for watching. I know you can't see my face, but just picture me. I'm here, I promise, guys. If you want to support my channel, you can do so. The till is right down there below. And I love you guys so much. I'll see you guys in the next breakdown. I'm working on Vimto, on Babito, on Ukwala, which other one? On SGR. Magunas. Did I post Magunas? No. So there is also Magunas. All that is coming. So just stay subscribed, and I'll see you guys in the next breakdown. Bye.